Saturday morning at Edmonton's downtown farmers market. Just one of Edmonton's many popular farmers markets. Markets where people flock to buy local vegetables, local meats, locally made food products, even fresh fruits from neighboring British Columbia. I'm obsessed with farmers markets, and I'm not the only one. They've become hugely popular here, with indoor and outdoor markets popping up all over the Edmonton area. People come because they want to see and meet the farmers who grow their food, because they want to know exactly what they're eating and exactly where it came from.
52 years ago, my uncle, he had a potato business, so he started that and I helped out. And then I started to work for my cousins who also were potato growers. My garden is too big, so I said I wouldn't mind putting a little greenhouse up. It was a small little thing, and that year I sold about 5 or 6 tons of tomatoes out of that place. So we have 24 acres now, and adding another 13. So.
You can get all kinds of things here, from carrots, to sausages, to pasta, to Edmonton's own local delicacy, green onion cakes.
Shanghai-style green onion cakes are my grandma's recipe, so she passed it to us through her cookbook. So when we found her cookbook, we were ecstatic because we grew up on them ourselves, and we wanted to share that with the rest of the Edmontonians here, as well as actually the Albertans that come through our market.
It's been a rough couple of years for Alberta farmers and ranchers who've coped with floods, drought, and all the challenges and, yes, all the opportunities created by COVID-19. Because this pandemic has forced us to recognize the vulnerabilities in our long, complicated food supply chains and inspired quite a few of us to cook more with ingredients grown in our own region. Fine Erdman's cabbage, grown not 5 minutes drive from here. I'm speaking to you not from my kitchen in Edmonton, but from my family's cottage in the woods. And just down the road from us is a wonderful market garden run by Ronnie and Wendy Erdman. And these are their beets, plucked fresh from a field. So this isn't like a 100-mile beet, this is a 10-mile beet. I could have walked to get these beets, except the beets are heavy, so I didn't walk to get these beets. Just up the road from my own family's quarter section, you'll find the farm of Ronnie Erdman, the first fella with whom I ever danced the two-step.
So we've been doing this now. We've been farming this type of farming for, I believe this is our 39th or 40th growing season. So our main focus here is fresh field-grown vegetables. It's all root vegetables that we'll store throughout winter, but during the summer months, lots of leafy greens and fresh stuff like broccoli, cauliflower as well. Really things that work good were the heat-loving crops. Cucumbers, like we can see right here, that's one of the crops that really loves heat. Plus, we have the ability to irrigate with very little rainfall this summer. So that was a savior, but it comes to the point where you got to kind of pick and choose. We can't irrigate everything on our farm that we grow, so we got to pick and choose. Well, what's going to be the crop that's gonna need it the most. Initially, when COVID first started, so the first thing that would have been in early spring, I guess. So I guess the immediate hit was all the food service stuff, and because we supply a couple larger venues like Edmonton Expo Centre, and at that time was the Shaw Conference Centre, so no big function, so that was an immediate stopping right there. The consumer, I'll say the household consumer, where we noticed a little bit of difference there is I think they did get more of an appreciation, because right at the start we had some shortages or some perceived shortages of product, and I think they realized that, hey, you know what, we gotta kind of get to know these guys. Maybe start buying local. Maybe they're going to be our way that we're going to keep our families fed.
Ronnie and his wife Wendy have been relying on the same team of summer workers for years. A team that arrives annually from Mexico to help the Erdman family bring in their harvest.
Last season was a horrible, it was wet and cold. It was not a good growing season. So I think a lot of us local growers came up short on things like pickling cucumbers and that, which probably didn't help that little bit of fear in the public. So now the local guys that they thought they could depend on Well, now, hey, we're subject to things like weather and, changing markets and stuff like that too. So I think it's caused a little bit of, how would we say, they've woken up a little bit. Their perception of what a farm or the supply of agriculture products, their take on that has changed, I'd say, over this whole thing. But I tell you, us local growers are sure doing what we can to try and involve some education with the public too about what we can grow here and how long it can be stored, and also some of the issues like over last year and again this summer, definite growing issues. So there's that education thing that we're not always going to have a crop, a bumper crop. There's going to be years when you might not get to make 500 jars of pickles. You might have to cut back to 200.
Drive a ways up Lily Lake Road from the Erdman's farm and you'll find Prairie Gardens, a market garden, greenhouse, and agritourism operation owned by Tam Anderson and her daughter Laurel. What started off as a place where people came to buy bedding plants and pumpkins has now become a popular day trip destination for Edmontonians.
The goal is to connect people back to agriculture, connect them back to the land, spend time in nature, and maybe learn a little bit about where food grows while they're here. To be sustainable on a small family farm, we have many diverse income streams. We've added agritourism, so people will come and they have a day with us or a day trip. We've introduced farm dinners at the farm, and we're working with local chefs and now employ local chefs. COVID rocked people right to their roots, and when they heard the borders were closing, because everybody said, oh, the borders will never close, but they did. And food chains were disrupted and farm supply chains were disrupted, and suddenly it was real. And I think, people wanted really to be more sustainable locally, especially growing their own food. Garden sales have gone through the roof the last couple of seasons. Also just coming out and buying food from a local farm rather than just popping into the box stores has really made a big difference. People are interested in where their food comes from. They're concerned about our planet and what they can do to combat climate change. And that is grassroots right at our level. People often ask us, why did we get into, agritourism? And the reason was not to start a different business. It was so that we could be sustainable on a small family farm and give opportunities to our children. And if they can see themselves in some aspect of farming, whether it's growing heritage chickens or whether it's connecting with the public and teaching them about where their food grows, or maybe having a cidery someday, that's what we'd like to see. It's what every farmer dreams of, is having their daughter take over the farm. And we're so proud that she's taken an interest in farming.
How long has your family been here?
This is my 38th year of being here on the farm. The farm itself was established in '56, so it is now over 60 years that we've been growing horticultural things on this beautiful piece of land here in Alberta.
This COVID-19 pandemic has shaken up so many of our lives and so many of our certainties. But perhaps it's made us appreciate the interconnectedness of our community, the way we rely on one another in ways we didn't always see and understand before. Our local farmers and ranchers are the backbone of our communities, the people who steward our land and raise the food we so often take for granted. These truly local supply chains are the ties that bind us together. And in our beautiful Alberta, this land of plenty, let us give thanks to those who feed us and our community, body and soul.